Avoid these weighted calisthenics mistakes to build more muscle. A video that I'm going to be reviewing made by Revival Fitness, a natural bodybuilder who happens to dab into the realms of weighted calisthenics. And he's going to be showing us the do's and don'ts in regards to training this way. So I'm going to be reviewing this video, figuring out whether he's speaking facts or cap. What's good, everybody? Corporate Trains here, and for those who are new to the channel, I am a hybrid calisthenics athlete, and I've been doing this for almost 5 to 6 years now. So with that being said, calisthenics and weightlifting equates to hybrid training. So I've accomplished a couple of cool feats, such as a 215 weighted dip for 3 reps, 155-pound weighted chin-ups for 3 reps as well, multiple handstand push-ups 4 reps, 1-arm pull-ups, and so on. So I kind of know what to expect, how to program your training in regards to weighted calisthenics, and overall building strength and muscle. So without me yapping for too much and just talking about my feats, I just wanted to bring that up so y'all can get an understanding of like where I come from, and then also, that my inputs has some kind of reasoning behind it. But let me stop yapping and let's get right into the video.
Perspective, calisthenics are very important. They are really the start and end point for all training. So given the body weight fluctuation component that is inherent to calisthenics, we're going to talk about that in depth coming up soon. I like to progress with these at a more measured pace than typical big exercises. So the usual recommendation will be to add 5 pounds or 2.2 kilograms once you complete a given set or rep range. When it comes to calisthenics, I like to use plus 2.5 pounds or 1.1 kilograms, and you can even use lighter micro plates if you have them. You can get micro plates.
So right off the bat in this video, we're going to be talking about the implementation of progressive overload, the general strength progression method for making an exercise just a little bit more difficult over time, all for the purpose of you to be able to train at relatively higher intensities to be able to continuously seek strength and also muscle gains. Now, I do like the fact that he made a point of utilizing 2.5 pound plates or even less in order to make your weighted calisthenic progress just seem more feasible and also more efficient in terms of breaking past strength plateaus. Now, because we're training with our body weight with additional loads, we're going to notice a significant difference if we were to say do the standard 5 to 10 pound jump increment as one would do while weightlifting, such as the bench press or squats. So with weighted calisthenics, it's even more crucial that one slowly increases the loads, and utilizing 2.5 pound plates or less can really be the difference to break past those strength plateaus. It's almost like the equivalent of training with resistance bands to help bridge the gap from one progression to another when you're training for static skills such as the planche, front lever, and so on. But let me make this point very clear. I wouldn't always recommend somebody to just always stick to doing those small load increment jumps, especially if you're a novice or beginner when it comes to weighted calisthenics. There's going to be a time and place to when you do need to start using those smaller low increment jumps. And like I always promote in my YouTube and Instagram pages, when you are a beginner or novice weighted calisthenics athlete, you want to start utilizing the 3 to 5 sets by 5 rep scheme progression method before you start doing the top and back offset method that's kind of reserved more so for the intermediate and advanced and definitely the elite based athletes. Now here's the reason why. Whenever you're doing 3 to 5 sets and 5 reps, the whole goal is to get to 5 sets to 5 reps, but you start off with just 3 sets. Now the way that you would implement progressive overload to help increase the intensity of an exercise is by adjusting the volume, more specifically the number of sets that you do. So you would start off with 3 sets with a particular load, do that for 5 reps. Once you get to that point, however long it takes, you would add another set. So then you do 4 sets of 5 reps. And then a week or two passes by with that same load, and then you finish off with 5 sets of 5 reps. Now, once you get 5 by 5, then you want to start pulling out your tool to increase the loads. And whenever you get to this point, right, you do 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets for 5 reps, and you actually begin to increase the loads, you'll notice that you'll be able to make much bigger jump in terms of your progressions. So instead of using like those 2.5 plates or 5 plates, you'd actually be able to be making like 10 to like 15 pound load increments after you complete that 5 by 5 strength progression method. And this is something that I always promote for my clients or customers who buy my programs because it's very suitable for novice and beginner athletes who do weighted calisthenics. Now, an example is when I actually helped one of my customers who bought my program, Corey, who was able to go from a 20-pound weighted pull-up for 5 sets of 5 reps to now a 75-pound weighted pull-up for 5 sets of 5 reps. And this was just in a matter of like 3 to 4 months, if I remember correctly. Now, this is what happens when you take the time to invest in a very credible program, a time-tested program, matter of fact. And that's really the value that I'm trying to like offer, is for people to be able to learn and become their own coach. So if you're interested and want to get similar results, go ahead and book a free 15-minute call with me using the link in the description or pinned comments, and I'll pretty much help you walk through everything you need to know about your weighted calisthenics journey. Click the link in the description or check the pinned comments.
Is that weighted dips and push-ups are going to progress faster than pull-ups and chin-ups. So you may commonly think that pull-ups and chin-ups would be ahead here because the back is comparatively bigger than the chest. And chin-ups will usually be a bit ahead of pull-ups given the added bicep and overall arm involvement. But of the big 3 weighted calisthenics, I would say dips are typically going to be the one that most guys are stronger at. Simply because dips have the shortest range of motion of all of these. So for example, right now I'm about 175 pounds. I know, my weight has been dropping pretty fast. And I'm up to 85 pounds added, so that's 260 total, for 8 reps on my top set of dips. I have not done chin-ups in a while. I recently brought back in pull-ups. I'm doing them close grip. For those, I'm up to 35 pounds added. That is 210 pounds total for 8 reps. So between the dips and the pull-ups, that disparity is 50 pounds or 23 kilograms for the same number of reps. And while the dips are a lower range of motion movement.
Now, I like the way he kind of compares his weighted dips and weighted chin-up numbers and how there's like a big gap in terms of the loads, right? The range of loads that's between the dips and weighted chin-ups, which I can definitely relate. So if I'm using his specific 8 rep maxes, like my current weighted dip 8 rep max is 160 pounds. And then my current weighted chin-up 8 rep max is 112.5 pounds. And if you add it up with my current body weight, which is like 190 pounds, it's about 47 to 48 pound difference between the 2 exercises. Now, even though my body weight and my weighted calisthenic numbers are different, I would say the range that me and Revival Fitness, the original creator, has are very, very similar. Like he had a 50 pound difference. I have a 47 or 48 pound difference. Now, I actually am curious to know if there's like a consistent percentage or range between, one's total weight on the weighted dips and the difference between that with the weighted chin-ups. Like, I wonder if that's something that's kind of consistent and standardized, like just by default, like we're naturally just stronger at weighted dips and we naturally have a certain range that we fall in between the differences of total weight of the weighted dips and weighted chin-ups. I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling right now, but I might have to look into that and maybe make a video or just talk upon it in a later video. Who knows? But with that being said, the original creator does mention how the dips has a much shorter range of motion to go through in regards to the chin-ups, and I definitely do agree with that. Whether you're doing any type of dip form, it's not going to be as much as the chin-ups, and that could be a big reason to why the dips is just naturally easier for more people. But I would like to also mention this too, that he doesn't really touch on, and I think it's a very realistic and something that a lot of people can relate to. And it's the fact that the dips is a horizontal pressing movement pattern. And we as humans in this day and age, this modern era, we do a lot of horizontal pressing just naturally, such as if you're sitting down on a chair or a bed, you got to horizontally press yourself up in order to be upright, right? If you're doing the most basic exercise when it comes to working out, what is it? It's going to be the push-ups, a horizontal pressing movement, which is also an exercise that is best supplemental for learning the dips as well. And what you do notice is that we don't, in this day and age, utilize a lot of our muscles within the vertical pulling range. So we don't ever have to be hanging somewhere. We don't ever vertical pull ourselves anytime or anywhere, unless you're like like a construction worker who has to be hanging off buildings or someone who climbs or something like that. Then you're not gonna be doing a lot of vertical pulling movements. So our bodies just isn't used to that pulling plane. So that by default makes us not really accustomed to that exercise movement pattern. And also our muscles will just be weaker generally compared to our horizontal pressing muscles. So I thought that was like a good point to kind of just clarify or maybe add on to it. But I think that's the another good reason to why we just feel stronger on weighted dips or just dips in general compared to chin ups or pull ups.
The one that is most overlooked, ironically, is probably the most popular exercise on earth, at least among guys, the push-up. So I really like these whenever I was doing them. The setup can be annoying, given that you're going to need some level of clearance like this if you're not using some type of vest or backpack. So you need an elevated bar and a rack, maybe a plyo box or a bench. Now, I'm not going to be the person that tries to do these on the floor, and I try to finagle a plate onto my back, or I ask somebody to put a plate on my back. That also makes progression very jumpy, since the increments are going to be much larger. Maybe you're willing to bungee cord them around your torso or duct tape them. It's a crapshoot. Just find a better way. And lastly, for the back, we have inverted rows. I got to the point where I was doing these for so many reps that adding weight, once again, a belt is usually not going to be practical here. Maybe if you position it perfectly to where it's resting on your stomach, but you're probably going to need a vest or a backpack. But this is an overlooked exercise in a lot of ways too, and it's really a great way to target the upper back. If you get to the point where doing these with your feet on the floor is easy, you can prop your feet up on a bench or a plyo box on plates, something like that, to make it more challenging, but it definitely can have its place in a program. So you could call those the big five.
Okay, now I definitely want to point out and agree that I do think that weighted push-ups and weighted inverted rows are not as popular and done compared to weighted dips and weighted pulls, right? But I think it's for the reason that these two exercises, the push-ups and rows, when done weighted, are just more annoying to set up. Like, I can't be the only one to kind of not be gravitated doing those exercises because the setup is a process. It's much more like weighted pull-ups and dips is already a process to set up, and then weighted push-ups and inverted rows is even more of a process to set up accurately and safely as well too. And first of all, I wouldn't recommend training the push-ups on a squat rack bar like he presented. That's just an accident waiting to happen, considering one has to balance the barbell from not rotating forwards or backwards. And this instability isn't the most ideal scenario, as it can cause you to slip out of the position when fatigued and you're in the later half of the set. Instead, I would recommend it's much more safer if you perform the weighted push-ups using a V-bar attachment, same as you would for the dips, or even better, getting gymnastic rings. This would be a much better alternative, whether it's the V-bar, a more secure platform, or rings where the instability in this case specifically is still safe to execute even when fatigued, but with the added benefit that the exercise actually becomes more intense because now one must focus on engaging more muscle fibers and overall body tension compared to the stable push-up. So by default, the use of added weight to the gymnastic rings just wouldn't even be necessary because the instability that it provides makes the exercise super difficult. And a progression that I would say to use is ring fly push-ups. Like, you're not going to be seeing people doing weighted ring fly push-ups at all, right? If you're doing it properly, like your body's completely horizontal, close to the floor, those are very, very hard, let alone just doing that progression body weight. I don't see people doing it weighted, especially for like the 8 to 12 rep ranges. So like, that's pretty much why you never see me talk about or even post about weighted push-ups or inverted rows. I do sometimes, very sometimes, do weighted inverted rows, but I still find alternatives with the gymnastic rings that I still find more beneficial than weighted inverted rows and weighted push-ups. So that's just my take on it. You know, if you want to do weighted push-ups, go ahead. But I do believe that if you're doing weighted dips and you're doing like pike push-ups, such as then you don't need to be doing weighted push-ups. If you really want to train a push-up variation and you're not doing pike push-ups or you're not doing dips, I'll do ring push-ups, like no cap. But hey, what do I know? If you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm the Tough Fitness Scout shit. No cap. Oh, actually, before I finish out the video, there is a second half of this video that I could react to. I just didn't want to kind of make this video super long. So if y'all are eager to see a part 2 of his reaction in regards to how to bulk and cut properly with weighted calisthenics, then comment part 2 and I just might do a review. Who knows? Maybe. But hey, what do I know?
Cobra Trains, he's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.